Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Vidya Malkani, and I'm part of the CIPS Dubai branch. On behalf of CIPS Dubai branch committee, CIPS MENA, and Heriot University, Edinburgh Business School, I would like to welcome you all to this evening's webinar, Talent and Work Ecosystem Post-COVID-19. We are all currently working and living through the pandemic and are quite curious about what it is going to be once this pandemic is over. I've read and heard a lot of articles and heard a lot of people talk that I see some comments here that people can't hear. Am I audible to everyone? Okay, great. So I've heard a lot of people talk, and I've read a lot of articles about, we've started working remotely and how this has blurred the line between work and life. Whatever we contribute towards our organization, we're trying to build and help our organization sustain and become successful. But our own personal well-being is equally important. So our aim today from this webinar is to spread more awareness about well-being, how to upskill yourself to meet tomorrow's needs, and how is this ecosystem going to evolve. So I would first like to invite Dr. Paul. Before we deep down into different conversations, I would like him to provide us with a welcome note. So I'll hand this over to Dr. Paul.
Good evening. Thank you, Vidya. Are you able to share the slides from your side? Oh, thank you very much. So good evening, everybody. And first of all, a big welcome to Heriot University and the Edinburgh Business School. I'd like to say a thank you also, please, to our sponsors this evening, CIPS Dubai, and to our three speakers, Doctors Nasser, Shireen Nasser, Dr. Kandil, and Dr. Kiran Hillier as well. So thank you very, very much for running tonight's session. And thank you, everybody, to coming along tonight's session as well. I think we've got nearly 50 participants online, so that's great. So thank you very much for supporting. I'd just like to say a few words about Heriot as an institution. So some of you will be aware that we're nearly 200 years old. We started in 19th century Scotland. Here in Dubai, we've been established since 2005. And we're lucky and proud to be able to call ourselves one of the most successful and the largest institutions, international institutions here in the UAE. And we've been recognized for our achievements this year through the second year in succession, getting a 5-star rating from the Knowledge and Human Development Authority, as well as receiving an accolade for being the best university in the Middle East from Forbes magazine. So this year has been, if you could move the slide on to the next one, been an extremely important year for us. For another reason, this year saw the reformation of our business school. So the business school used to just house our MBA, our extremely successful MBA, and also our graduate programs, our DBA, and it's now been expanded to encompass all of the business programs, including those that used to belong to the School of Social Sciences. So it's enabled us to achieve considerable scale. So in Dubai, we're about 1,400 students. We've got 26 programs spanning everything from undergraduate through to postgraduate education. We've got 23 staff. And our subject areas cover everything from logistics and operations, marketing, HR and law, strategy and enterprise, accountancy and economics and finance. And we also cover psychology within our wider School of Social Sciences as well. For some reason, I'm not able to see the slides advancing. I'm not sure what's going on there. Okay, one more, please. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. And so 2021 is actually going to be an even more momentous year for us. So we're moving from our current home, which is in Dubai Academic City, to our new home in Knowledge Park, in Knowledge Village. So this is a brand new facility for us. It'll be opening in 2021, and it'll be housing some really exciting facilities for business as well. Heriot has always prided itself on its connections with business, and the new campus offers some incredible facilities for our connections with business. If you wouldn't mind advancing the slide onto the next one, please. So one of the centerpieces of our new premises is this enterprise and business floor. So what we're going to be doing in there, we're going to be hosting businesses through our partner suites. We're going to be incubating businesses for our students through our incubator facilities. We're going to be educating businesses through our executive education facilities. And we're also going to be connecting internationally to our students through our digital theatre facility. So it promises to be a really exciting addition to the university. So we're partnering with the Dubai Future Foundation with their 6th article initiative to give students the possibility of not just of graduating with a degree, but also graduating with a business idea, and then taking those out into the Dubai Future Accelerators to develop them further. So this is going to be a really important development for us in Dubai. And if I could ask you just to advance the slide on to the next one as well, please. Thank you. Another feature on this 5th floor is our Bloomberg trading facility. So we're going to be bringing live stocks and shares details, data to our students as well, particularly those from the computing and finance parts of our school. So a lot of exciting prospects for us in our bicentennial year. So next year is our 200th year as an institution. And it just remains for me to hand back over to Shireen, who's going to introduce the next speakers, and to say thank you very much again for hosting tonight's event to CIPS, and we hope to work with you again in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Now moving on to our first topic tonight. We're going to be talking about self-care and well-being while working remotely. I would like to invite Dr. Kireen to talk about this subject. She's an assistant professor of psychology with Heriot University. Dr. Kireen?
Thank you. So I'm just going to request a video that I can remotely control your screen. Great. Thank you. So hopefully that should be working. So hello, everybody. My name's Kieran. I'm, as Vidya said, I work at Heriot University in our psychology department, and I'm also a licensed psychologist here in Dubai. And thank you for joining us tonight. So in terms of what we're going to be covering today, I tried to think about what would be most relevant for everybody, but I'd certainly be curious to hear from you regarding what you think would be most helpful to hear about in our session today. I'm trying to advance the screen. Here we go. So this is the agenda that we're going to be covering. So first we'll be talking about what is stress. So it's this concept that we throw around a lot and you'll hear a lot, but just sort of checking in on what people's understanding of that is, the different types of stress that we can experience, and our body's stress response. So there's typical patterns that we see in terms of how people respond to stressful situations. And we're going to be doing some activities regarding identifying what that looks like for you, because then we can put that into practice in regards to identifying some strategies to deal with that. And part of that then looks into identifying what the sources of stress are for you when it comes to working from home. And then we'll put all of that together to formulate an action plan to help you, all of you, manage your stress better. So at the end, we'll be making a pledge regarding what you're going to do in practical steps moving forward. So that's my plan for tonight. What we're going to start off with is a Zoom poll with 7 questions. While you're filling that out though, if you do have any really burning questions that you would like me to cover, in the hour that I have with you, then feel free to pop that in the chat. But I'll ask Vidya to show you guys the poll.
Sure. So I would be launching the first poll.
Yes.
You would see a screen with poll question in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll warn you before we close the poll out.
I think we're giving them 30 seconds for each question. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and okay. So how has your experience been from working from home? Most of us are saying very productive, which is excellent. Fairly positive, didn't find a difference. One person saying it's been awful, so I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, so let's move on to the next question.
Okay. And our next question is live.
Yes. So with this one, you can actually choose multiple choices here in that what would you say have been your key sources of stress when it comes to working from home? So you only have to pick one, but if you feel like there are multiple ones, then feel free to select those. And if you choose other, feel free to also comment in the chat if you think there's other things that are important that we haven't identified.
And the poll is closed now.
Great. So number one that we're seeing is establishing boundaries between work and our personal lives. So I will make sure that we cover some important elements of that. And the physical space also came up quite frequently, and job security, which makes a lot of sense in light of the current situation. Okay, shall we go to the third question?
Yes, and the third question is live now.
Okay, so this one's a slightly easier one to choose from in that if you had to choose, would you prefer to work from home or work from the office, or do you not have much of a preference? Thinking about it now, I'm wondering if I should have added a fourth option, which is, would you like to have a balance between the two? And we have 10 seconds left. Poll is closing too quickly. Oh, we're checking how attentive you all are as well and your fine motor skills. Okay, great. So of the 44 who managed to get to it before the poll closed, the largest portion, but it's only by a small margin, is that most of you would prefer to work from home. Again, which is really good to hear. So I guess what I would also be interested in is hearing your success stories regarding what you've done to make this work well for you. Okay, shall we go to the next question?
Yes.
We're up to question 4 now.
And the fourth question is live now.
So did you face any challenges when it comes to communicating with people in remote learning? This might relate to the issues around setting boundaries or unclear communication in regards to what you need to do. So we have 7 seconds left. 37 of you have responded so far. I should actually keep tabs on the percentage of people who complete each one, see if we're getting faster. So no, most of you haven't faced challenges with communication. Again, this is all pointing positive signs regarding how everybody's managing working remotely, which is excellent. And the next question?
And the next question is live.
Okay. So what do you think have been the benefits of remote working for you? Again, you can choose multiple ones here if you think there are several benefits. And you might need to scroll down just to see all of the options here.
And the poll is closing now.
Okay. Okay, So the most popular one has been no longer needing to deal with the commute, which again makes sense in light of what we've been hearing about, as well as being able to adjust your work schedule. And certainly this has been found to be important in regards to managing your stress levels when it comes to working remotely, and being less distracted by work colleagues, and being more productive. I see a close one to that is also less contact with toxic colleagues or work environment. So hopefully that's not too common an experience for people. Okay, and shall we go to the next one?
And the next poll is live.
Okay, what coping strategies have you utilized to cope with the stress of remote working? Because it may be it's less stressful, but it might introduce different types of stress, which is certainly something we'll be discussing tonight. So what is it that you do to kind of manage your stress? We've given you guys longer to answer this one. I think we're giving them a full minute to answer this question. Still only seeing 2/3 of you responding. Makes me sad.
And the poll is closing now.
Okay, so maintaining a flexible work approach has been the most common response, but also making time for activities that I enjoy. And it's nice to see that also a lot of you are accepting that both myself and my colleagues are not working under normal circumstances. So yeah, certainly when we talk about different coping and stress management strategies, we're looking at activities, yes, but also mindset and the attitude that you're taking towards your work is going to play an important role as well. I think we have one more question from this poll. Yes.
Yes. Yes. And our last question is now live.
Okay. Do you think remote working is going to be utilized more or less moving forward after COVID-19? And 10 seconds left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That one got the highest response rate. Probably because it's the easiest question. Yeah, so again, you know, we're going to have to see how things are moving forward, but at the moment, every indication is that, one, we don't know when we're going to go back to normal and whatever that actually means. So any changes that we are going to be dealing with, we're probably going to be dealing with for a fairly long period of time. But every indication is suggesting that we're going to be seeing more remote working across different industries. Now, this is going to be impacted at different levels depending on the industry that you work in. But given that is the pathway moving forward, we need to acknowledge that and therefore be prepared for what we can be doing to make our work experience as pleasant as possible when working remotely. Okay, great.
So Dr. Kirin, before you continue, I would just like to tell all our attendees that if you have any questions for any of our speakers today, there is a Q&A box. If you can go there and put in your questions, and after each session, we will try and take a few questions. And also at the end of all the presentations, we will get into the Q&A. Back to you, Dr. Kirin.
Okay, great. So let me control. Okay. My computer takes a little while to respond. Okay, so when we talk about this concept of what is stress, I'd like to hear from some of you, and feel free to put this in the chat. When you think of this term stress, oh, that was not meant to come up. I gave the game away. Darn it. Okay, what is it that what does stress mean to you? So I had one person, Atez replied earlier that like a source of stress for them is a long number of emails to deal with every day. But yeah, when we're stressed, when we say that we are stressed, what do we mean by that? And how is that different to anxiety, for example? Either you're all waiting in eager anticipation for what I'm going to say, or it's a question that people often haven't answered. So stress for me is about responding to deadlines. Okay. And stress feels unpleasant. Right. Okay, great. So we have issues, and we're going to be talking about different types of stress, and also how that expresses itself in different ways for different people. When we are overloaded with work, too many deadlines. So deadlines in our 3 responses, deadlines has come up twice. So much to do, can't achieve anything because of feeling pressured. Okay, great. Being in an uncertain situation. So certainly there's an element of when we feel a sense of lack of control over our environment or the things that is happening around us, that can certainly add to our stress levels. Meeting family demands versus workload. Yeah, we have competing interests and multiple priorities that we're trying to accommodate for. And not everybody's priorities are going to align with ours as well. So you're going to have those competing against each other. Physical stress, being unable to sleep, not being included in work conversations. Okay. Not knowing what to do can also be stressful. Yeah. So having that lack of knowledge or information about a situation makes it difficult for us to then decide what we're going to do. Meeting deadlines in shorter periods. Okay, so when, in terms of when psychologists talk about stress, so we're talking about any situation where our resources are overwhelmed. So that can help sort of distinguish between anxiety versus stress. Anxiety is often thinking about what's going to be happening in the future. Stress is what I'm feeling and what I'm dealing with right now. We've got another comment from Fuad with the technology today has made us too accessible through emails and Skype, for etc., adding to the stress of fast-moving deadlines. Okay, so that comes back to that issue that people were talking about earlier regarding setting boundaries. So I'll make sure we focus on that. So when we're talking about our resources being overwhelmed, we're talking about a number of different resources. So those can be our physical resources. So certainly when you are exercising, for example, you are putting your muscles under stress, and that's what makes us stronger. And certainly there's this, there's an important element in terms of distinguishing between motivating stress, and that's something that can actually help us focus and be productive, and being overwhelmed by stress. Then we have our emotional resources, our cognitive resources. So if we don't know what to do, or we don't feel like we can make a decision, we're not understanding the material that we're having to try and work with. But then there's also structural resources as well. So the actual physical facilities and equipment that we are working with. And so for some people working from home, that's created issues of around not being able to have access to their usual materials, or working with office equipment that you have at home that might not be ideal. So now you're working on your desk or your dining table, and factors like that. So as I mentioned before, stress itself is not a bad thing, and it's inevitable. We're always going to be exposed to some level of stress. And this is the Yerkes-Dodson U-curve, inverted U-curve concept and theory of around stress, where there is an optimal level of stress. If we don't have any stress, then we're often quite bored and unmotivated, find it difficult to focus. But then if you've got too much stress, then this is what can lead to fatigue and exhaustion and burnout and those types of things. So we want to try and get into this nice middle ground, which is called eustress. And that's where what's going to help keep us focused, keep us energized, help us maintain our attention on a problem for a long period of time. So certainly when it comes to stress, the goal is not I need to remove all stress from my life. It's that I want to bring it down to a manageable level. And the way that we can go about doing that is if we have a good understanding of what are the types of situations that cause me to feel stressed? What are some strategies I can use to manage that? And how can I be proactive with my team or my manager or my family, the people around me, so that I can either anticipate that stress or avoid it or minimize it in some way? So when we're talking about stress, and as we saw in that earlier one, stress moves along a spectrum, but we have acute stress. So this is when you're exposed to a stressful situation for a short period of time and then it's over. So it might be giving a presentation to your work colleagues, 20-minute presentation. So you might be feeling quite stressed about it in the hour beforehand or maybe the day beforehand as you're putting the material together, but you know that there's a clear cutoff point. Once this presentation is done, then I can relax and I'm fine. Then you have acute episodic stress. So this is when the stress comes and it settles down, but then you know it's going to come back at a later point. So an example of this might be if you have to prepare accounts at the end of the month, every month, and you know that that time of the month is always going to be particularly stressful for you and your team. And then we have chronic stress. So again, acute episodic stress, it's there and you know it's going to happen again, but it gets to an end point and then it comes down. And then you're able to recover. Chronic stress is when you are always exposed to some type of stress. You're up here and then you never really quite settle back down to that baseline that you would like to be at. So just as you recover from one stressful situation, you think, oh, okay, that presentation's done. Oh no, but now I have this other thing that I have to deal with. We're always up there. So in terms of these three types of stress, which type of stress do you think is the worst one? So this is the next poll video. Oh, you're on mute, video.
Can you hear me now?
I can now.
All right, our next poll is live now.
Okay, so of these three types, which one do you think is worst? Again, this is a way for me to check in that some of you haven't gone off to the kitchen to get yourself a coffee. You could be like me and have my tea set here ready to go. And 7 seconds left. Okay. Great. So overwhelmingly, the research suggests that it's chronic stress that has the worst long-term impacts on us, both in terms of our physical health, our mental health, our work productivity, all different areas. Okay, so let's close that poll. So sometimes it's then about identifying what can I do to sort of maybe turn my current stress levels. At the moment, it might be quite chronic. How can I try and at least give myself some periods where there's breaks in between so I can recuperate a little bit? And then we have different sources of stress. So this model was introduced by Albrecht in 1979. And so we have 4 broad categories of stress. Time stress is when you are put under time pressure. So a lot of you have mentioned deadlines. So this sounds like quite a common experience for a lot of people, but you feel that pressure that I need to get a certain amount of stuff done in a certain period of time, and I don't think that that's a feasible time frame to be working towards. Then you have anticipatory stress. So this is when you are feeling stressed about an event that is coming up. Yeah. So you know that that presentation is going to be happening tomorrow. So some people can sometimes ask, well, then what's the difference between an anticipatory stress versus anxiety? Anxiety is often when your head is running away with you in regards to all these bad things that might happen. Whereas stress is often around, this is the work that I need to do in order to get this done, for this to do well for this presentation. Yeah. So if someone's got anxiety about giving a presentation, they'll be thinking about things like, what if I start to blush while I'm presenting? Or what if I lose train of thought, or I make a mistake and people identify that? Or my presentation slides aren't working and I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing? Versus anticipatory stress is thinking about, oh, in order for me to be prepared to give this presentation, I'm going to have to write up my PowerPoint slides. I need to practice a certain number of times. I need to check the numbers in some of these slides to make sure I'm giving the right information. Then you have situational stress. And this is when you find that certain situations tend to make you feel more stressed. So common ones can be when you know interacting with a certain colleague or something is always quite stressful because there's a bit of a personality clash there, or you have competing priorities or agendas, and so you always feel like it's a bit of a combative conversation. Or you might know that when I have to do this particular task, like I'm not a good report writer, and so when I have to write up this report, this is always something I kind of struggle with. So you know a certain situation tends to get you a bit stressed. And then encounter stress is when you find that interactions with people tend to be a bit of a stressful experience for you. So not just certain types of people or specific individuals, but interactions in general. So people who work in certain industries are more exposed to this type of stress. So people who work in sales, for example, customer service is a big one, healthcare. So these groups are more exposed to things like, or more at risk of developing things like compassion fatigue, because those interactions, you're often dealing with other people's frustrations and anger or distress or anxiety, and that has its own psychological impact on you. So the next poll I'm going to ask you guys about is, what types of stress does your work expose you to? Which ones do you think are most relevant for you? Again, you can make multiple selections for this one. So feel free to choose more than one if you think those are there. But what type of stress do you feel like you're more exposed to in the work that you do? Ten seconds. Okay, so the most common one for people is situational stress, that they know that certain types of situations are more stressful for them. Feel free in the chat to share the types of situations that you feel like are more stressful for you. But then Albrecht then talks about, well, if you know the types of stresses that you're more exposed to or that you struggle to deal with more, then we have different strategies that we can employ for these different types of stress. So certainly I can elaborate on those more if you guys would want to. So let me take back control of the video. And then the other thing, I'm not putting out a poll for this, but I want you to think about whether this has changed for you since you started working from home. So for example, it might be that you had to deal with a certain type of situational stress. So working with a particular colleague, for example, was always quite stressful for you. And now that you're working from home, you don't have to deal with that as much because you're never physically around this person anymore. So that might be a benefit, but it might be exposing you to a different type of stress. Maybe your work is setting, the same deadlines. They haven't adjusted your deadlines even though you're not working under normal circumstances anymore. So this is more just a lot of these questions that should just get you guys thinking. The more that we're aware of what our stresses are, then the better equipped we are to sort of do something about those. The next thing that I want to talk about is stress responses. So what is our stress response and why is this normal? And why is it also important? So stress serves a biological function. The reason we've evolved and that we still show this response, if it wasn't evolutionarily advantageous for us to have this stress response, it would have evolved out of our system a millennia ago. But it serves as an alarm system around, is this, clearly I'm not coping or I'm feeling overwhelmed at this point. What's going on? How can I check in on my internal and my external environment to see what I need to do to better try and manage whatever situation I'm facing right now. So an alarm goes off in your brain, and then that triggers the release of these various stress hormones in our adrenal glands, and then that will trigger a number of body-wide changes for us. So I don't know, have people heard of the fight, flight, or freeze response? People can say. If people haven't, then I won't. If people have, then I won't elaborate too much. So John is saying yes. Karen is saying yes. Nope from AlphaJaw. Yes from Shravani. So think of our fight or flight response. We've also added freeze response because certain situations will get us more often to actually just freeze in place rather than fight or flight. But this is preparing our body to either punch and try and defend ourselves or to run away. So this works brilliantly when it comes to a physical threat to our body. So way back when, if a saber-toothed tiger jumped out from behind the bushes, we could either go, ah, and either run away, or we could pick up a stick and try and defend ourselves against the saber-toothed tiger. So we see all of these different types of changes happening in our body. We see changes in blood flow, so our blood moves away from our internal organs and away from our brain and moves to our arms and legs, so in order to prepare us to run or to fight back. So there's physically less blood going to your brain. So your capacity to problem solve and to make good decisions when you're really, really stressed goes down. And this is why we often see common stress responses in regards to, because there's less blood going to your organs, and that includes your digestive system, then we'll see people who experience a lot of chronic stress might be have digestive difficulties, including stomach ulcers. We'll see, your muscles are tensing again, so you can either run away or fight back. And so people talking about different muscle pains in parts of their body or having headaches, that types of things is common and makes a lot of sense in regards to how your body is reacting. So while this is a brilliant response for your body to be doing when you're exposed to a physical threat, it's not very useful when your body is exposed to a psychological threat. And our bodies have not evolved to the point where it can distinguish between a physical threat and a psychological threat. Maybe in a few more thousand years, we will have developed that capacity. But for now, our body responds in the same way. And actually, a lot of these responses in regards to a psychological threat is quite unhelpful. We can feel quite paralyzed in regards to what we do, decision-making at that particular time, feeling emotionally overwhelmed, and that desire to just, I want to get away from this situation, again, makes a lot of sense biologically. So, again, this is just where in case you're wondering where the adrenal glands are, they're just above your kidneys, and these are the three stress hormones that our body releases. So in regards to the stress responses, there's 4 broad categories that we can talk about. So you have physiological stress responses that I mentioned before. So these can be things like digestive issues, so feeling bloated or IBS, constipation, you might have muscle pains or headaches. So some people's responses are more physiological. Other people, their stress responses might be more cognitive in nature. So indecisiveness, difficulties concentrating, and those types of things. Then you might have more emotional responses. So some people are very agitated when they're feeling stressed. Other people are very down. And then you have behavioral responses. So then you'll have other ones that kind of fall into, they don't quite fit into a particular category. So this person is feeling quite anxious, which has an effect both on your decision making and your emotional responses. And then we have behavioral responses. And again, these can vary widely. So some people will sleep too much, other people will not sleep enough, other people will eat too much, others not enough. Some people will try to engage in behaviors that help them in the short term, but are maybe not so helpful in the long term, such as drinking and other types of behaviors. And then again, you might have other ones that are difficulty to categorize. So I might be working with someone who, when they're stressed, they fight a lot more with their partner or with their family members. So that is a behavior, but it's also because they're agitated, and maybe because they're working remotely, they can't express that frustration to their colleagues. So now they're misdirecting that agitation to someone in the family who's more immediately around them. So I'd like you guys to think about, what does your stress look like? So this is another poll video. I think this is the last poll for me, where I want you to nominate what your stress responding actually looks like. Sleep works fine for me. Ha 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 ha. I don't know if that's okay. So feel free to select multiple ones. Or if you don't think any of these, or maybe you haven't thought about this question before and it's difficult for you to determine what your stress actually looks like. And Alpha Joe, when you say sleep works fine for me, I don't know if that's okay. Again, it's a very personal thing. So if it's, well, if you think your level of sleeping at the moment is working for you, then great. But if you feel like, well, it's actually sort of interfering with my ability to get everything done, other people might be commenting on it, then it's okay. So certainly for me, I'm definitely sleeping until later in the mornings. I've been able to adjust my schedule. I don't really start work now until maybe 11 o'clock in the morning, but then I'm working until around 8 or 9 in the evening. So here, this is a nice demonstration of, this is pretty evenly split, the options that you're all selecting. Again, it's very normal. It's not the case that I could say most people tend to respond, show physiological responses to their stress. So again, it's not that any of these are better responses than others. But again, if you know what your stress response is, and the earlier that you can pick that up in your day-to-day life, then the easier it can be to implement some strategies to help you manage those effectively. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. And again, I want you to think about whether this has changed for you since you started working from home, because you are working in a different physical space, and that can trigger different responses in you. I mean, on the one hand, the fact that I can sleep in until later, that's good, because I'm definitely a lot more of a night owl, so I don't feel as tired than when I had to get up previously. But it might be, I also have very easy access to my kitchen. So am I engaging in more stress eating? Or I use it as am I cleaning more around the house, because I'm using that as a procrastination strategy to try and cope with my stress. So again, it's normal to see changes in people's stress responses when you are working in a physically different space, but it's also very normal to not see changes. So again, it's an issue of knowing for you what is most relevant. Okay, so what I'd like some of you to do in the chat would be to write down some of the coping strategies that you find useful to implement. So I know we had that poll earlier, and it was doing things like scheduling in activities that I find relaxing or de-stressing, but specifically, okay, taking naps, yes. I take 5 or 10 deep, slow breaths. Great, Karen. Certainly, breathing exercises have been shown to be very effective in helping to reduce that fight or flight response very, very quickly. And what's really good about these breathing exercises is they're exceptionally portable, and you can fit them in anywhere. If you only have a minute, you can still do a breathing exercise, or you can do it for half an hour if you like. But at the same time, there might be people who don't like that particular strategy. Working out, says John. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of research showing that physical exercise or physical activities, some activity that involves some physical exertion is going to be good, because remember, your body is preparing for a physical response when it's stressed. So giving yourself some outlet to do that is going to be very helpful. And what that looks like for different people is going to vary a lot. So I see AlphaJaw says desk yoga works really well for him. So some people will do that. Other people, it'll be I'm going to schedule to go to the gym for an hour after work. And certainly something that came up for a lot of people when it came to the lockdown was maybe their usual ways of managing their stress was no longer available to them. The gym is closed, so they can't go over there. So can you implement strategies like that at home? I couldn't go to the gym, so I was doing workouts with a video on in front of me. And I should have taken a photo, but I was literally using milk cartons as my weights. As a way to try and problem solve in the environment that I was working in. So again, exercise is great, but also accommodate it for what you enjoy and what works for your body. You certainly don't want to injure yourself. If you do want to try a new exercise, that novelty can be really exciting, but also make sure that you start at the easier levels and work your way up because you don't want to give yourself an injury or something. Just scrolling back up in the chat. Yes, it is, as we are not able to see some negative thing, guys who just try to stop you. So I think, Nityan, are you talking about how much attention we pay to people who maybe have a negative influence on our emotional state? Feel free to elaborate on that. Taking long walks, says Sikana. Again, walking is great. And that might have been a strategy that people didn't have access to for a while during lockdown. First, we couldn't do it at all, and then you had to have a permit. And then it's wearing the mask, and now it's so hot outside. Exercise again, I go to the gym, planning to do my hobby activity in the weekend, says Sunny. And that's important as well in regards to when it comes to your stress coping mechanisms, whatever it is that works for you. Needs to be given priority. So certainly for a lot of people, particularly when they're feeling under time pressure, and that time stress has come up for a lot of you, we can feel like, oh, I don't have time to do my yoga for an hour or to go for a walk for half an hour. I have all of this other stuff that I need to do. But we need to prioritize it. And I always tell my clients, like, put it in your schedule and treat it as a meeting that is just as important as if you were having a business meeting at work. Because if that's what works for you, then think about the long-term effect on, if I take an hour out now, is that going to rejuvenate me and help me concentrate to such an extent that I'm going to be way more productive for the next 3 hours? Or it's going to help me sleep tonight and I'm going to feel so much more refreshed in the morning and I'm going to be able to get started straight away. These all have a long flow-on effect, and so it's important to feel like I'm entitled to make this time for myself if this is what's important to me. Desk yoga, listening to music and breathing exercises. Yeah, so for a lot of my clients, we might practice breathing exercises in the session together, and then they're told to practice doing those on their own. And for a lot of people, selecting certain music to go with that can feel very helpful in getting you into that space. For a lot of us, music, we have a very strong emotional response to that. Either it brings up fond memories from a certain period in our life or a certain event that has happened to us, or that tempo or beat is just, we find really energizing or very relaxing. So again, it's playing around with what works for you. And that can be helpful in scheduling it as well. If it feels like I'm going to do a breathing exercise for this next 3 minutes, so the duration of my favorite song. Then again, in the grand scheme of your day, taking out 3 minutes to do this, if that's what works for you, plenty of time to do that. Playing with my pets. Pets has been interesting, and there's so much research around the de-stressing and the relaxing and all these positive psychological benefits of having pets, if a pet is something that you enjoy. And we've seen a big uptake in adoption rates of pets during this lockdown. And I'm not sure of like what's driving that, if it's people who are single or maybe living alone as having another companion in the house, or it might be something you can kind of focus your energies on. It's this little ball of energy and love and affection or something, but that's certainly a very helpful one. Nitin says mediation. I think you're meant to write meditation, unless you find mediation is a very relaxing exercise that you do. But yeah, meditation. And again, when it comes to meditation, so sometimes people can think meditation is when I'm sitting cross-legged and my hands are like this and I'm going om. And if that's what works for you, great. But that's not what meditation is, and that's not what it has to look like. Meditation is just allowing yourself to focus on what a particular thing that you would like to focus on in that very moment. So are you focusing on your breathing? Are you focusing on the world around you? Are you looking at a particular flower for the next little while? So there's a lot of mindfulness around this concept of meditation. And different activities are going to trigger a kind of a meditative process for people. So there's actually research showing that certain repetitive physical actions are very meditative, such as, this sounds a bit bad, but actually chores are really good for this. So things like ironing, folding laundry, vacuuming, washing the dishes, because it's very repetitive. You don't need to, it doesn't require a lot of attention, but yet you can still really focus on it. And you see the positive outcome of whatever it is you've been doing straight away. So you get that immediate reinforcement. But also different activities. My husband does kite surfing, and he gets in what he feels is quite a meditative state when he's out on the water. He's alone. It's very quiet, except for the noise from the water. He feels very calm. So again, meditation, there's a lot of benefits, but don't limit yourself in terms of what activities you can do to allow yourself to achieve that state of calmness. Listening to lofi music. I don't know what that type of music is, but that sounds interesting. Sophia says doing some meditation and looking at the river flowing outside my office. Great. So that sounds like quite a mindful exercise. Which is excellent. So mindfulness is about choosing, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to focus 100% on doing this thing. So mindfulness, again, there's a lot of information out there and different exercises, and there's a lot of positive benefits to it, but it's also a choice. You can choose to be mindful in doing a particular activity. And if you decide for the next 5 minutes, I'm not going to do anything except focus on this river flowing outside my office, then great, do that. But if you decide I'm not going to do that because I'm doing these other things, that's okay as well. So mindfulness is about, if you find this helpful, but it's a way to just help us slow down and focus on a particular thing, and that can develop a sense of appreciation for people, a sense of calmness. But again, mindfulness, there's a lot of different ways that you can achieve that. Listening to music and some breathing exercises and some yoga. Rewatching, John says, rewatching short episodes of my favorite comedy TV shows. And this is interesting. Rewatching takes away the micro stress of not knowing what's going to happen. That's really interesting. So yeah, certainly comedies, anything that makes you laugh is going to be great. And yeah, if you decide I'm just going to do it for this period of time, I think with Netflix, I might say I'm going to watch 1 episode and then 5 episodes later I'm still there. So it takes good discipline to go, okay, I'm going to stop at this point. But that's also a really useful strategy. And I like that of, well, I've already seen this before, so I can enjoy it without that anticipatory stress of, well, what's going to happen next. Carmen says, I need to write down everything I'm going to do, and then I have a clearer idea of how to manage them. Great. Also, I start every day with yoga. It really helps. Brilliant. So I like how Carmen's bringing up, we've been talking about different activities, which is really good. And again, it's a matter of what works for you. But we also can be thinking about other types of elements of our lives. So we focused on activities. Here, Carmen's talking more about planning. So writing down, if there's everything I need to do, let's get that out of my head and just put it on a piece of paper. And then maybe once I see it, goes, oh, okay, well, actually, now that I've seen this, I'll do this thing first, because then that'll help me with this other activity. Or, okay, now that I've seen it, maybe it's not so much. If I can give myself 2 hours to do this, and then I'll have a break, do my yoga, and then I'll do something else, and then I'll do something else. But planning your day out. And I love to-do lists, and then I can have that when I cross it out, like, yes, that's one achievement I've already made. So I find that very reinforcing. So we talked about activities. This is planning. There's also an issue of sometimes we can think about time management as part of that planning. If there's all of these things that I need to do, what's the best way for me to go about doing that? And mindset and attitudes has been something else that I want to get to, but I just want to see what else we've got. So Maria says, I go for a walk with my dog and I try to focus on positive things. I just said we wanted to talk about mindset. Look at that. Something that I really managed well, successful projects that I previously delivered, etc. Great. So we're talking about mindset here in regards to, often when I'm talking with my clients, and we'll say that often we think about it that a certain situation has happened, and then that has made me stressed, or it's made me angry. This person said this, and that made me angry, or that got me stressed, or that freaked me out. And I'll often talk about how, well, something happens, yes, but there's a middle point in terms of how we interpret that. And it's that interpretation of that event, that's what leads to that emotional response. So we can focus quite a lot on whether people show a particular tendency to interpret things in a negative way. And we can, the way that we're looking at situations and interpreting other people's actions and behaviors around us and the things that are happening around us, if we're interpreting that in a more negative way, then that's going to add to our stress. So the strategy that Maria is talking about is something that I will get quite a lot of my clients and people in general to implement, is like a gratitude journal or a positivity log, where it's at the end of the day, write down 3 things that went well for you today. So we're moving our mindset away from anything that went badly, because there probably might have been something that didn't go particularly well. And instead we're kind of resetting our brain to be focusing on, well, what went well? The other one I might do where it's, okay, if something did go badly, what's 3 things that you learnt from that experience? And then what are 3 things you're going to implement now that you've learned them? So it might be my presentation didn't go so well, and it might be, oh, well, I learned that actually I do need to practice a couple of times actually in front of a person. I was just practicing on my own. So if I do it with someone, then that's actually helpful. If I have a couple of note cards without things written word for word, but just a few of my key points, then I feel a little bit more relaxed there. And also I wore an outfit that I didn't really feel particularly comfortable in. These shoes were kind of hurting my feet. So what am I going to do? Okay, so next time I'll make sure I practice in front of my partner. I'll prepare some note cards and I'm going to wear a different outfit. So it's that, you know, the mindset shifts from like, oh, that was really bad, to a learning mindset and a development mindset around how do I, what is it that I can do to improve having gone through that particular experience. Working out from home using utensils, so yeah. Problem solving skills around what is it around the house that I can use as a weight right now, maybe our pet or a big book that we've got. Sophia says at home playing with my children, which is great. So certainly anything that involves other people, we are inherently social creatures. And so if you find that that's what invigorates you, then that's great. But also some of us are more introverts. So I'm definitely more of an introvert. So I can be very exuberant when I am presenting, but in terms of how I relax and rejuvenate myself, I tend to be more inward focused, and I like to just chill out at home. Or if I do meet with people, I do much better when it's either one-on-one or a small group of people. I enjoy that a lot more rather than a big group of people. But there are other people who love those big groups of people, and they might then be really struggling when it comes to remote working and just being in lockdown in general, because they're not able to access that type of energy. So how do we generate that in a different way for people? What else? Baking, a lot of baking. Yeah, so I saw a meme a few months ago, and it was, oh, actually COVID was caused by baking yeast. There's a conspiracy by bread for us to bake more of it. So again, my husband, he took up baking and has been baking bread since we started lockdown. And so exploring with a new hobby can be really good. But we've also seen this flip side where there can be this toxic positivity, I guess as some people phrase it, where there was a meme that got a lot of attention, whereas if you haven't started a new business or learnt a new skill during lockdown, you don't have lack of time, you're just lazy or something. And it was seen as, I can see how you're trying to be motivating, but actually that's a very unhelpful attitude to have at this point in time, because we're not dealing with normal circumstances. People aren't working from home just because they can. They're working from home because we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have kids who are homeschooling. We have our partners or ourselves might be under a lot of stress with work. So it's doing what you need to do in order to cope. And if that involves learning a new skill, whether it's baking, or you decide I'm going to try and start learning a new language, or I'm going to try yoga for the first time, or I'm going to buy a guitar and start to learn how to play that. If that works for you because it's relaxing, then great. But if that just adds more stress to you, I am someone who's terrible at learning languages. So I thought, my husband is from Egypt, so I thought I can finally learn Arabic. I have not. It's just not worked. I'm like, nope, I don't have the mental headspace, because I have to really concentrate. And my cognitive resources are allocated to these various other things. So no, it's something I want to do, but now is not the right time to be doing that. So putting less pressure on ourselves. We don't have to be productive 24 hours a day, and that can be the pressure that we feel on ourselves. Exercise and deep breathing, talking and sharing. So yeah, certainly verbalizing that we are stressed or we're feeling overwhelmed, either as a form of venting to our loved ones around us, can be great, as long as, again, it can be about helping them understand I'm not necessarily asking you to fix the problem for me or to take on this burden for me. I just want you as an outlet so I can blare and help myself cope with this. Or what's definitely helpful is to verbalize that with our peers at work as well. Again, if this can be done in a constructive way, where we're all feeling this. It's not just me. So I'm not the weird one here. We're all struggling with this. And now that I know that this is a shared experience, what can we do as a team to decide how we're going to modify things that work for us more effectively? So when it comes to things like boundary setting, for example, do we need to be clear with each other around when I can be expected to reply to emails and when I'm not? So some people have found actually boundary setting while remote learning to be quite easy, and because they're not physically there, so they'll go, nope, I turn off my laptop or I turn off my phone and they can't reach me. And others feel like, no, people are constantly expecting us to be on call, and it's having a discussion, well, why is that the expectation, and is that something we can be doing? I'm just conscious of time, but we are almost done, and I just want to see if there's anything else that's coming up. Studying or reading books, great. So yeah, it might be I'm reading something new and learning some new information is really nice for me, or no, I'm just going to read something light and fluffy fiction that I enjoy, and that's fine as well. Take a break and listen to music. Karen says, I keep a journal with a list of everything I need to do in the current day. New tasks that come up are added, and I don't stress about whether I forget about them. Great. So yeah, if I've written it down somewhere, it's fine. I can always come back to it, so I don't need to try and hold all this information in my head and overwhelm my cognitive resources. As part of working from home, I have also found the 20-20-20 model working for me, wherein after 20 minutes, I turn away from the screen for 20 seconds and look at something 20 feet away. Excellent. So yeah, I've heard this as well, that again, our eyes are not designed to be looking at a screen for 24 hours a day. And so after 20 minutes, taking a break and just looking at something else has been shown to be good for our eye health. Some spiritual activity, great. Mackie says, it gives me an opportunity to practice my hobbies, such as cooking or reading, walking and sewing as well. Krishanji says, listening to music and drifting myself away from the time. Vidya says a 10-minute time warning. Oh, yeah, that's you. Okay, so we have just 1 more minute left. So let me, we'll take it to the last one. And this is the pledge. So you don't have to do it right now, but it would be nice to see people typing these in as we transition to the next presenter. But we've been talking about all these different strategies. I would like you to now make a pledge. So this is a verbal public commitment, so we can hold you accountable in regards to what are 5 actions or 5 strategies that I can implement moving forward to help manage my work stress better whilst working from home. So feel free to type those in the chat if you're happy to share those. But if you just want to write this for yourself so you can refer back to it later, then that's great as well. So thank you guys. I will wrap up there and we will move on to Dr. Shireen.
Thank you, Dr. Kirin. That was very interactive and very insightful. So before we move on to Dr. Shireen, we'll quickly look at our Q&A and see what questions do we have. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so what we are going to do is we will quickly pick up 1 or 2 questions, and at the end of the session, if we have some time left, then we can pick up some more questions. Dr. Kirin, one question for you is, going forward, noting the COVID-19, is the school planning to offer online direct remote courses on a daily tuition basis? I'm not sure if that question is for you. Okay.
I think that's for Paul. And the next one from Mackie seems to be for Paul. AlphaJo talks about the PERMA model. Maybe I can talk about that at the end. And Mackie says, yeah, thank you. Nilash says, I'd be much more efficient when working from a conventional workplace because of the structure and the discipline and the rhythms and the restrictions of a conventional workplace. So yeah, certainly working from home, we find that if you've got good self-discipline and you're able to motivate yourself, it can work really well. But if you're someone who likes kind of the ebb and flow and having that structure around you, and there's a bit more external environmental factors shaping your day, then you probably will cope better. So then it's thinking about, how can I implement similar types of structures for me at work? So do I set certain alarms on my phone, even changing into a different work outfit rather than staying in my pajamas the whole time, like I'm in my work clothes, so now I'm going to do work. Trying to set up your space. It can be tricky when you don't have a lot of physical space, and maybe someone set up an office in their bedroom, for example. That's not ideal, because now your brain, ideally we want our brain to be thinking of our bedroom. That's for sleeping and one other activity. But when you're then working in there, then your brain can't really, it starts to lose that association. So trying to separate as much as you can and creating that singular space. So are there certain things that you set up in your work desk at home that help remind you of that physical space at work? Might be certain plants that remind you, and you try and pop that in the corner or something. But I won't take up any more time, and we can come back to questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kirin. Next, we are going to be talking about work ecosystem post-COVID-19. I would like to invite Dr. Tariq Kandil to talk more about this subject. Dr. Tariq is an adjunct faculty at Heriot University. He's also a certified international trainer. Dr. Tariq, over to you.
Yes, I can find some difficulties in switching on my camera. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for Dr. Karen for the lovely and useful presentation. This is my first time in my life I can see that we can distribute the data and collect the result and analyze the result in the same time, which is really, really very hard work. And I want to thank Dr. Ball for the useful presentation regarding to the new working place of Heriot University and the new facilities there. And also for you, Vidya, I want to ask you to accept my greeting regarding to your useful and significant work in this voluntary work as a CIPS Dubai. And thank you for this invitation. I'm now talking about the work ecosystem in post-COVID-19. Actually, I have only 20 minutes, so I want to make it a little bit faster for that. Okay. So our agenda for today is to analyze the return to work readiness survey, and then we will start from this point to talk about the employees' lives matter in the new normal in post-COVID-19 working environment. What are the main digital KPIs and technology, and what are the new human digital rights in the new working ecosystem, and also what is the new regulatory environment for employees and for the working place, leaders, and work. And finally, we'll talk about the digital ethics and the new culture, digital culture in the new working place. Okay. There's a lot of change has been taking place in the last 88 days of lockdown. There is a lots of jobs has been disappeared, and a lot of employees has been leave their jobs suddenly, and there is a lot of things has been made in this new environment. So it make it a little bit tough, rigid, and more turbulent. There is no information about the future and how can we deal with this type of change, which we need to highlight it today. There's a lot of changes in the job market, which is make it transform it from supermarket jobs to super jobs in one new market. And also there's a lot of professional standardization and new work standardization regarding to the prevention strategies has been made and has been prioritized in the new working place. and giving them the new priorities and importance in comparing with other professionalism standardization. So that make the jobs even more turbulent rather than before. But first of all, we need to talk about the new normality definition and why it's new and why it's normal. Based on the phenomena of the new normality, we need to answer the question of what is the pandemic means and what is the difference between pandemic and epidemic. The epidemic is a small event happened in one particular area, and at that time we can able to contain the virus or this new things have been happened, and we can able to change it. There is no reflection on the economy. There is no reflection in the human life, the change in jobs, organization goals, performance, but we need to change this event and be more safer. So we are talking about health care in this issue. This is epidemic. But once it comes to pandemic, there is a geographical area of spreading the virus all over the world. And this is not a healthcare, this is a well-being. So we will change the concept of healthcare to be well-being issue, more advanced, and there is a new change in the way we can deal with these circumstances and the post-normal of this new normality. And also, there is a lot of changes regarding to the new normal ecosystem, and from that point, we can talk about the new working ecosystem for the whole world, because the whole community and the whole economic markets has been infected and reflected by these changes. When we go to the survey, we have been asked a quick question about I would prefer continue to work from home rather than working in the on-site working place. And a lot of people match with Dr. Karen survey, which is made it now online, live. And the majority of people, like 48.1% of people agreed that they can able to work from home for the new several months. And also, in the second question of this survey, I prefer that I'm able to continue working remotely rather than on-site. And from that point, we can say that a lot of people, 55.1% of the respondents agreed that they can able to understand the remotely working environment, and they agree with working with these circumstances online rather than working physically from their normal working environment. Okay, so what is the phenomena that we need to highlight in terms of the new normality, which is became the new reality of the new working place? Increasing the volume of data spread everywhere in digital devices, and also through remotely working environment. There's 1,000 and million and trillion of data has been spread in the last 88 days online regarding to professional work, professional environment, and professional employers. And there is a new issue of cybersecurity risk has been raised up. 600% of the data has been hacked and has been unsecured in this new working environment. And also there is a shift toward automation, especially the digital technology, using the digital technology in the working place. The demand for proactivity and agility will be the first priority to compete the competitive advantages for the new companies. They will not able to continue working effectively without agility, which give them the right to act faster for the new demand and the new market requirements. And also there is a rising number of financial crimes regarding to fraud, money laundering and terrorism finance in these issues because of the lockdown for maximum or more than 3 months. The need for proactivity and predictivity of the risk is then highly priority for the new job market. What is the feature of this new working environment? We summarize it in 6 abbreviation terms, which STEEPC, which is social. Number 1, the social distance. Okay, social, which is the virtual collaboration. There is a lot of social distance restriction has been made by the lots of government all over the world regarding to stopping or containing the spreading out or outspread of this virus. So the social relationship during the working environment will be something which in highly recommended requirements for new working or returning back to work. The technology, using digital technology in different way, we can able to say that the technology is very important to carry out our jobs in different environment and especially in remotely working environment. This technology will be the key point to make you have the step further for the new requirements. The economy, it changed a lot. The job economy also changed. There is a new growth of gig economy, GIG, which is get it go. Get it go means contract work rather than full-time work, where we can able to hire lots of experts around the globe, where we can able to invest their knowledge in our communities. The environment will be even more greener than before. Take into consideration the prevention, and there is no cure. I know the prevention is better than cure, but if in case there is no cure, the prevention is the only cure for health and environment, and changing the word health to be well-being rather than talking about the health itself. Okay, P and C. Okay. The political and regulation, there's a lot of changes, and we have to give the employers the right to life. Their life is matter because they need to have the way and the knowledge which has been hidden, not sharing between the people, because the new regulatory make the people more afraid from the future, and they need to achieve competitive advantages for the future. So political and regulatory environment give the employer the right to know about their digital human rights, remotely working control KPIs, and that will make them more competitive and sharing a lots of sources and data between them. But make sure that you will not find a lot of sharing in knowledge. The knowledge will be the key point to achieve competitive advantages. So we can face some knowledge hiding rather than knowledge sharing. The information is very important. Okay. So based on that, there is a ladder here for employees in the new normal. They will move from normal issues to have predictive analysis. So moving from manual to piloting the new normal, predicting the analytic issues, continuous improvement for the new working environment, and continuous transactional monitoring, because we start the job to continue, not to stop. It's not a lockdown, it's not a shutdown, it is a lockdown for temporary issues. But we have to create our prediction and proactive issues for the future. We will not able to say that we didn't expect something to happen. We expected, and we prepared the solution for it. but we change our way of doing the job for better, proactive, and predictive way of doing the job. And that will create more skills and challenges for employees and working place. The working place and the way you can get the new job, you have to be more agile. You have to be more adapted for the future and learn more about the digital environment and ecosystem and the new post-COVID-19 and the new normality. You have to have not only a creative thinking or the analytical thinking, you have to combine them in terms of critical thinking, to think in such a way other people did not able to figure it out, or they can able to deal with it smoothly. And also coding and decoding will be the new issues in dealing with the job. I mean, digital knowledge will create the coding and decoding basic way of new communication. Analytics. Without data, you are nothing. Without data, you just have an opinion to say something, but no one could able to listen to it. Digital IQ, which is suited for the new customer. The new customer, which is called digital engagement customer, they need more sophisticated technique and analysis to highlight their engagement. Communication. I think in the first session, where Dr. Karen said that the communication, one of the new protocol that made the new working environment a little bit harder for the new normality. And all of that will create your new personal branding. You are a personal branding of the consultancy. Like lots of people now can work as an auditor, for example, but they create their own personal branding and consultancy to do their own work. Like, for example, Talal Abu Ghazala, one of those people who create their own personal branding. PwC, you can work in the PwC, but you can create your own personal branding in this issue. What is the technology? The new technology. The new technology here has been summarized in different things. We have the technology which shaping the new ecosystem, digital ecosystem, which is more decentralized digital ecosystem. However, the previous ecosystem was centralized. The centralized and decentralized is, we are talking about here about the orchestrator company, where we can able to engage lots of people to harmonize and create more things which is more useful for the whole communities, not to work it as a isolated, unethical sort of doing the work. Okay? It is similar to the tree in the left-hand side. This is the centralized way of ecosystem. This is the old ecosystem. We can take our services or our orders from one route and we can disseminate it for the whole tree. But in the right-hand side, we can see here, this is the decentralized economy, and this decentralized economy has their own value added, and they can create their own value chain for the new companies. So we have a number of more active, the 10 active digital technology, which is artificial intelligence, robotic process automation in different industry. And we have a case study here in auditing work and also in oil and gas industry work as well. The data analysis, machine learning and deep learning, using the drone technology in order to investigate the situation and the shutdown restriction period of time and the expected shutdown in the future, using the blockchain technology and the distributed ledger technology, using the smart contract, which is more useful for doing the administrative and financial work. The digital twins is very important as well to do the work from or remotely working environment. Okay, and based on that, the smarter workplace ecosystem in post-COVID-19 will be a combination between the work and online work, remotely work, conventional work. As a reaction here, we can say that in this type of work, we have just only a little a plan to do the work from on-site, like what's happened in last March. And also, they based on the demand, there is a semi-planned response to external forces. Employees will be ready to do the continuity plan, like in different banks, they can able to make online and offline customer happiness and services. There's a multiple scenarios. If we have a lots of people have different talent, we can able to make a workforce responsible. And also using a robotic through artificial intelligence enabler, which will be less in terms of the cost, more agile, and more effective in a working ecosystem. Yes. There is a case here in Dubai regarding to the oil and gas technology floor. The history of technology in oil and gas started with 1980 to 1990s. So in this 10 years, the cost of drilling will be even more higher than before. And those people who are working in this field can know exactly that the capitalized cost of drilling will be even more high because the technology used in this period of time will be unuseful. Moving to automation in drilling and legging while the drilling reduce the capitalized and expenses costs regarding to that. In the new millennium, they use the three-dimension imaging and intelligent completion and digital off-field. In 2010 till 2020, we have a virtual reality, which more digitized a little bit, and using the drone inspection to figure out the field and the offshore companies. In 2020 to 2030, there is totally robotic and using the technology where we can find the intelligent off-field, intelligent pipelines, refinery, robotics controlled, and all of those technology reduce the cost significantly in the last 5 years. Okay, and we in this table we can say yes, yes, okay, okay, yes. In this table, we can say that there is the application scenario is focused on the drilling stage, and there is a significant reduction of safety risk and also the cost. And diagnosis of detection, we have achieved a lot of effort and cost by mimicking the real time. And also the weather, the monitoring system here, we have automated the weather sensor, and that can create a lot of useful things regarding to the geographical hazard activities and the weather to predict natural disaster before it's happened by a significant time. The meter system, the intelligence sensor here is used to realize the real-time data, which will reduce the cost and enhance the sensitivity regarding to the safety and security in the working place by using this technology. Okay, what is the new regulatory? You're right as an employer here, and your life in this new normal is very important for us. So there is a new regulatory application for the new treatment and destruction, and flexibility is very important regarding to the new normality. There is a workload limitation and online and offline working environment. And also there is a lot of guidance during the returning back to work or even in the remotely environment, working environment. There is a lot of rules and regulation has been issued and make the employers more applicable and knowledgeable regarding to that. Okay. Regarding to the new normal employees regulatory economy, they recalling back the employees to workplace and giving them a lot of training courses regarding how to deal with the new normal working environment. How can you be safe? How can you reveal that there is someone has been infected, and what are the new steps you need to do in order to highlight that to the top management. Okay. In the question we have been asked in the survey, if I had a concern about returning to work, I know how to raise it for the government or the top management. We can say that 41.5% of people has been accepted that. That means the companies and all the new working place institution made their all employees aware significantly of what's happened and how can they deal with the new normality. Okay. Okay. This feels like the right time for a return on-site working or working from office. 39.6% of people disagree with that because they a little bit stressed of returning back to work, and they didn't know exactly what are the circumstances in case they have already infected by the virus, and what are the new circumstances, what the new things they need to do if they will fire from their job, they leave the country, or they put them in a hospital where there is a lot of restriction. And so they are all afraid from that. We found that the job function of the people who respond to this survey, mainly from finance and accounting, HR, administrative, customer service, and diversity. So all of those people prefer to work from home rather than working from regulatory and conventional working place. So based on that, we can say that a lot of people prefer to work from home, a lot of people afraid from going back to work for somehow. And there is another case study about the auditing and accounting offices in the UAE. There is a lot of restriction regarding to those people who need to collect a lot of evidence regarding to inventory investigation or testing or investigating the fixed and fixed assets for the balance sheet. How can they prepare for collecting sufficient and appropriate evidence where there is a lockdown or restriction of traveling or working from home? So based on that, we suggested here in the Ministry of Artificial Intelligence, which is one of the Dubai Emirates federal ministry, suggested that they use digital twin for auditor to collect their own work, where the auditor can able to create a virtual real assets for the company, where they can able to invest or collect the evidence about the number of employees, number of warehouse products, and they can able to collect all of those, and the digital twins can give the auditor or the accountant all the information about the type, the number, and all the points they need to collect, and then there is no shutdown for the auditing office. They can carry on or make the work more continuous and more efficient in this way. But there is a question about what is the KPIs in the new normal issues in digital environment. The digital KPIs, it's about how can you set up a new digital working place successfully. Number one, you have to choose the right KPIs in the right time that you need to focus. You need to focus on the digital KPIs where most of the people work from home and use the new digital technologies. So based on that, They need to create a successful setting up new working ecosystem, which is formation, validation, and growth, where we can combine the new mission and new vision and strategies and the lean setup in order to scale up the growth for the new normality. And that need to work hand in hand with the new customer engagement and also the employees. For yourself, if you are working in a small business and you need to set up to what extent my KPIs and digital KPIs has been handled very well, you have to use this equation, which is a digital scale times the digital active usage for each procedures, and also what is the digital engagement using one engagement and communication technology like Team or Zoom, how many times we engage new customer, new visitors, new active, and multiply with the new scales, you can create what's my successful new digital tractions. We need to focus on new customer engagement, product services, relaunch again, and the new geographical focus. We need to focus only on those three main parallels when we need to make a new creation for KPIs in the new normal and post-COVID-19. In PwC, they have issued some important measurement for successful digital KPIs, which is 5 ways to do that. KYC, which is know your customer very well in this new normal, and clear support from the management to support your way of doing your job in order to have a successful KPIs. Stay educated most of the time. You stay updated regarding to the new technology and the new way of doing the remotely working environment, and assess the job. I can update you with the latest KPI data dashboard when you want to create your own KPIs, ecosystem mapping application as well. And this application will help you set up your KPIs more efficient in the new normality as well. I can handle it for you. And also, for effective digital KPIs, employees need to take into consideration most important 4 parts here. You need to be more active, more agile, faster, and trustful for other people. Otherwise, the new KPIs for your job will be in a risky position. Based on that, we need to highlight all of those 4 main dimensions with creativity, agility, and how to be even more faster and react to the new changes, and in the same time to be more trusted. Okay. What the new ethics? This is the 4th human rights, digital human rights for you. What is the new ethics? As we said before, the communication. How to communicate? How can you get the new visitor or the new agile customer, new digital customer, new engagement for the new companies, which will compete the lockdown or the isolation. You have to, it's not just what you want to say, it's how you can say it for other people. How you say it, this is the most important part. So it's a little bit regarding to the communication skills as well. Lockdown is not a shutdown, it's not the way you can stop the work. You still have the possibility to continue with your work and also to deal with this new circumstances. In remotely working environment, okay? In the remotely working environment, there is a new KPIs also, and new ethical issues, which is you have to focus on your own well-being, not only your healthcare and safety. Well-being is more wider concept rather than healthcare and safety. And for the manager, you have to be transmitted about the workload and project. Use videos, and for the manager, you can over-communicate with other people by using videos through Zooms, Teams, and any other communication techniques. Set up your own physical and virtual workplace and record your meeting most of the time for an evidence, and be inclusive, conducted remote meeting. And for the manager, you have to be more transparent, more agile in dealing with those people, and put them updated regarding to the training and education issues for the new normal. If we are dealing with the old working ecosystem, we have lots of difficulties here to combine ethics and integrities, and there is a lacking of effective oversights. As you can see here, there's around more than 10 or 15 people are working here, and there is a lot of duplication, and also lack of visibility, and also lacking of efficiency, isolated departments, lots of wasted information, wasted cost management. But in the new working ecosystem, in the new normality, you have to combine together the ethics, integrity, through reorganizing the quality and quantity of working place. You have to choose the people who are working with. What are the new followers in the new normal issues? Okay. The age of the respondents are between 25 to 35 years old who respond, 41% of those people, and less than 25 is 13. Okay, other slide, please. The work experience here, 10 to 20 years time. Yes, and I highlighted all of those data in terms of people analytic for the new normality. Okay, we can say there is 5 generation working side by side in the 2020 in the next normality. And as an employer and as an employee, you have to make sure that which stage or which generation your organization classify you. For those people who are was born in the 90s till 1945, you have to take care of those people, because the virus could able to affect them badly. And however, the working place in the conventional working place is the first priority for those people. However, in boomers who were born in 1946 till 1964, they are willing to work from conventional working place on site, and they are hardworking. The people who are working was born in 1965 to 1979. Those people are hard workers, and they can work from home, and they can use some technological issues regarding to the internet, computation, and phones. 77 to 97, those people could check their own smart devices more than 6 times an hour, and they are eligible to work from home rather than working in the conventional working place. So your date of birth is very important for the employer now to know exactly where we can put you. Is it an offsite and on-site issues? The Generation Z, more important to work from remotely working environment through the digital technology, because they are more efficient in working. Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I'm sorry I've been speaking a bit faster. It's only 20 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. I'm happy to receive any question from you.
Thank you, Dr. Tariq.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Via.
We'll take the questions in the end, just to keep the time in mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll hand this over to Dr. Shireen now, who's going to talk about the talent gap. Dr. Shireen. Dr. Shireen, I think you're on mute.
Okay, always happens. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our workshop. I would say this workshop more than a normal webinar. Obviously, my presentation is linked to Dr. Tariq's presentation, who took really took time from my presentation. I have to be very fast now. As he talked about the work ecosystem, so it's really important to highlight the talent gap based on what he told us about all the new technologies, the new work environment. And we need to understand this. Although even if you have a job now, so you might need to think about how you keep upskilling or reskilling to make sure that you can enhance and maximize your opportunity in your job market. Okay, so I think the agenda for today, as it was mentioned in the beginning, we'll talk about the threat and opportunity. If the talent gap is a threat or an opportunity, it's important to understand the root cause for this gap. It's important to understand how big is this gap, also the impact of COVID-19 on the talent gap, and also we need to understand the stakeholders involved in filling the gap, and we'll end with to help you how to bridge this gap through more a collaborative response approach. So if we talk about talent importance for business, talents are very important because they are the key success factor for any business. So this actually differentiates those who are successful in business from those who are failing ones. Especially in the time of the disruption as we see now, talents help businesses to survive, and when it comes to the recovery time, also help businesses to thrive. When we talk about skills and talents, we are talking really about three types of skills: technical, soft, and job-specific skills. So it's very important to understand that type. What about the technical skills? So when we talk about the technical skills, these more specific skills that needed to, it could be more related to the task or the program, such as computer skills and quantitative analysis skills. Job-specific skills is more, can be trained, can be learned by experience, such as communication and leadership skills and problem-solving skills. When it comes to soft skills, we talk about more about behavior traits or attributes which are more difficult, which are difficult to train. So it's more intrinsic to individuals, like motivation and cultural fit. Obviously, when we talk about talent here, we expect talent to have these three types of skills. Okay. Talent gap, and it's very important when we talk about this talent gap to know, to understand and analyze this gap. Okay, so what's the gap? We need to understand first what is the talent gap. Talent gap is basically very simple concept, is the difference between the demand of skills and competencies by employers and the skills and competencies offered by workforce. Here, when we talk about talent gap, we need to differentiate between two perspectives. Are we talking about employer's perspective or individual or job seeker's perspective? At business level, it's very important for businesses to understand the gap and analyze the gap to help to identify their needs, current and projected training and hiring needs, obviously in response to their strategies and their plan, which covers obviously long and short-term plans. And for that, they use different tools, and there are advanced tools and analytics to help with this analysis, and even relying on third party to help with that. At job seekers level, job seekers, they need to understand the gap to enhance their employability through identifying the requirements for reskilling. Okay, if here I'm considering job switchers as well, if you change your job, the type of the job you used to do, so you need to reskilling or upskilling. So this is important to understand. From this point, the next one will be the pooling activity. Now, I would like you to answer two questions here, which will help us to understand more in more detail this gap. So the first question will be the industry type. So please, Vidya, can you please come up with the first one? This is the first one, which is asking you, please select your industry. It's very simple here. I didn't include really different types of industries, the manufacturing, service, or others industry, any other type of industry. Or if you are currently unemployed. Okay, so we have 5 more seconds. So yes, here is the answer. So most of you from service industry. So only 9%. Oh, most of you work in service industry. So nearly 60%. That's great. We'll now, Vidya, can we go for the next? Okay, next question will be about, I would like you to evaluate the talent gap in your industry. So in your industry, how do you evaluate the current talent gap? You have 3 options, mainly 4 options. Skills needed by employer exceeds skills offered by workforce, and skills needed by workforce exceeds skills needed by employers, and skills needed by employer matches the skills offered by workforce, or I am not sure. So we have maybe, okay, so we can, oh, we have more time. Okay, so now we have the result. So nearly 41% sees that the skills needed by employer exceeds the skills offered. Okay, remember your answer. I would like you to remember your answer, okay? And we have nearly 29%, they are not sure, which is very interesting. This is why I'm saying, you need to understand this talent gap in the job market. This is the first point. Okay, so if I go back to my slides here, so let's go in further or deeper analysis of this gap. So the first option, or one of the options was, is this gap skills needed by employers match the skills offered by workforce? This is ideal situation. We are not in the real life situation. Okay, so the next one will be, so if we analyze this in terms of threat and opportunity. So can we go next? Okay, so we have in terms of threat, we have here skills needed. Remember your answer and link the answer to what we are saying here. The skills needed more than skills offered. This is a threat for the employer, okay? When it's the situation for the workforce is different. If the skills offered greater than skills needed, this is a threat for employees or workforce. And when it's an opportunity for the employer, it's when the skills offered actually more than the skills needed. So skills needed, okay, less than the skills offered, and obviously is the other way around for the workforce. So skills offered less than skills needed, it's an opportunity. Now, I would like you to do the last polling activity for me. So based on your answer, remember your answer in the second polling question, and answer please here. I would like to know now, evaluate your position. Do you think the current gap in your job market offers you an opportunity, or you are facing a threat? Hopefully you get the point from this analysis. So it's a learning point here that we continue our presentation based on that. Okay, that's great. Yeah, happy to see this answer. Okay, it's mostly in the positive side. Okay, that's great. Okay, so we have now 65% of you saying that based on your answer in the second question, you are you have an opportunity in the job market, which is great to build on the rest of the presentation. So positive for you, takeaway point for you that you have an opportunity. But remember, it's an opportunity only if you utilize the opportunity. If you don't utilize, it will be a threat again, okay? So let's now analyze the root cause. As from problem solving point of view, approach or methodology, it's important to identify the root cause. So once you know the root cause of the problem, you start find the option and how to solve the problem. So the root cause of talent gap. If we look at the talent gap, we always find that the driver of talent gap is the technology. If we think about the 4 industrial revolutions that happened, every industrial revolution was driven by a change in technology. Change in technology makes change in business environment, okay? And change of business environment based on a change in working practices, right? And this required new rules, and the new rules required new skills, okay? So we find that Industry 4.0, as linked to what Dr. Taren mentioned in his presentation, and digital economy, I link these to talent gap. This digital economy disrupted talent in various industries, okay? And I believe we all agree on that. So the new digital system, which is mainly related to Industry 4.0, based on capturing data all the time from both physical and digital sources, using all the technologies. I'm not going to repeat all the technologies already covered in the previous presentation, okay? The core of the Industry 4.0 is the connection between digital technology, which foster actions in the real world, okay? So the barriers of implementing Industry 4.0 and digital transformation, many challenges happen that slow down the rate of implementation. Research showed that one of the key factors to this slowdown is a lack of in-house talent among the key challenges to support the development and deployment of Industry 4.0. Okay, so you can see here the situation mainly based on the talent. Can we move? Okay, there's some statistics here which shows show a projection for 2022. And remember what I'm saying now, everything before the pandemic, prior the pandemic. So imagine the situation now. So technologies by proportion of companies likely to adapt them by 2022. I'm not also going because of the time through everything. So we have all the technologies here, but we can see that the range from 85% expecting to be implemented in 2022, and the lowest percentage here is nearly 20% or 19% from all the type of technology. The height is the big data analytics and web-enabled market and applications, Internet of Things, machine learning, cloud computing, and so on, okay? Apparently, we have a clear digital skill gap here, okay, in relation to technology. Now, we need to understand how big is this gap, okay? It's also something you need to understand. We see this also another indication for your opportunity in the job market. I'll just indicate or refer to some of the statistics here. So, based on the survey, according to McKinsey, in this slide, you can see that I included first to 2017, 2018, 2019. On purpose, I did this to see the chronological the trend of this gap, okay? So according to McKinsey Global Survey 2017, it was conducted with nearly 900 C-level executives, and the MHI survey result from over 1,000 manufacturing and supply chain professionals. Talent skill gap and workforce shortages continue to be the highest among the challenges facing companies to achieve their strategic digital targets. And then also in 2018, it was reported by Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute that the skill gap in an increasing, could result in 2.2 million jobs going unfilled. And in 2019, at least 133, because of this digital economy and increasing the data-driven future, okay, the European Commission believes there could be as many of 756,000 unfilled jobs in the European ICT sector, okay? And they expect this to become even more acute. This is an example from supply chain sector. This result by MHI in 2020. All these statistics I'm showing you now is before the pandemic, all before the pandemic. Here's the statistic telling us hiring skilled workers. It's in the survey, executives were asked, hiring skilled worker remains a top challenge in supply chain. You can see the increase. The gap is increasing, it's not decreasing, even before the pandemic. Obviously, this talent gap created new roles. So at least 133 million new roles generated as a result of the new division, because of the division of labor between humans, machines, and algorithms, which may emerge globally by 2022. Okay, this is by World Economic Forum. Okay, so there will be a strong demand for technical skills. This link what I'm saying to what Dr. Tariq mentioned. So there will be strong demand for technical skills like programming and app development, along with skills that computers can easily master, such as cannot easily master, that like creative thinking and problem solving and negotiation. This is here another statistics which tells you about the quantifying the skill gap, number of job opening per unemployed worker in the profession. As we see, the top here in the top is a nursing. Imagine the situation after the pandemic. Okay, and then business comes in the second place, business and financial, and then IT and technology and management. So this statistic again tells you that you have really great opportunity in the job market if you utilize this opportunity and know what you need to do to enhance your skills. Okay, so next here, okay, let's talk now about the pandemic. What was the impact of the pandemic on the talent gap? Apparently, we are talking now about talent war, not really a talent gap. The war of talent is back, but the rules have changed. Let's first talk about what was the impact of the pandemic, simply. The pandemic make us change the whole world to become digital. So we are dealing with digital business. And digital business is no longer optional for anyone. As we all see, in all industry, we are working digitally. So the pandemic was kind of wake-up call for accelerating the digital transformation, which is very important during the time of uncertainty, okay, as a matter of survival for businesses. Also, digital strategies are at the forefront of business continuity planning and building resilience. As Dr. Tariq mentioned, risk and resilience becomes really something all businesses need to manage and consider and build their plans for business continuity based on what-if scenarios. Also, we need to understand that only businesses that are agile enough to adjust to the current situation in extremely short time, is nearly no time, will survive the crisis. This was the impact of the COVID-19. How this impacted also the talent gap. What we see based on a report by Deloitte that there is kind of dynamic and uncertain workforce supply and demand now, and significant shortage of future skills in all industries, along with fundamental shift and the expectations of employees, customers and citizens have all changed the game. Also, what we are doing, linked to Dr. Karen's presentation, talking about remote working, it imposes new work practices, okay? So this required obviously dealing with new work practices and new skills, require new skills, develop new skills, okay? To understand the talent gap, it's very important to understand who are the stakeholders in this gap. They might contribute to the gap, increasing the gap, or they might really help in filling the gap. Let's see first how they are really contributing to increasing the gap. As we can see here, we have key three stakeholders: educators, employers, and job seekers, okay? And we can see that this connection among the stakeholders intensifies the talent gap, okay? We agreed that the skill gap represents the disconnection between employer expectations regarding job seekers' readiness for a specific role and the experience and training applicants possess for that role. Okay, so as you see here, the gap maybe before the pandemic, or maybe 5 years back or 10 years back, was relatively smaller, the gap between the employer and the educator and job seeker. What we see now is this gap really become much larger, much bigger. As you see, we are in the red zone now, okay? And what we aim to is to achieve this, to close this gap, okay? Using collaborative approach with harmony, all of us working towards filling the gap. So a key element of this skill gap is an information gap between the main participants. Employers don't know how to articulate their capability, needs, nor how to assess whether candidates have those capabilities. For educators, they don't know which skills to focus on. And for job seekers, they don't know how to demonstrate they have the right skills. But it's important to know that I need to highlight here. I'm talking about knowledge economy sectors. What I'm saying applied to knowledge economy sectors, where unfilled job openings exceeds the number of unemployed workers, which is different scenario when we talk about sectors like construction or manufacturing, where the number of people unemployed vastly exceeds job openings. Okay, so let's discuss this more details. Traditional educators, can we go back please? Traditional educators, what they did, college programs are not evolving their curriculum to match employers' need. This is why we had this the gap is getting bigger. Programs view themselves also as opportunities for self-exploration and personal growth, and for individuals to pursue intellectual curiosities. How employers contributed negatively to this gap? Businesses are unwilling to pay high wages for candidates who lack job readiness. And also they are unwilling to invest resources into development and the training because of the pressure of the cost, okay, involved in this. And the individuals are switching also jobs. So they invest in human resources and they leave the job. For job seekers, individuals expect educational programs to equip them with the required skills to get a job. And they are worried of investing in developing skills independently as a result of relatively stagnant average wages, okay? So here's an empirical evidence in the next slide, showing that the talent gap with empirical evidence. This is another survey. Two questions here asking about. It is challenging to find appropriately qualifying candidates for job opening. As you see here, we are talking about the highest three sectors with high talent gap: nursing and IT and business. You see that most of executives see, like for business, 71% they agree. It's very difficult for them to find the right talent. They see this happening and continue to happen. Over the past 10 years, it has become more difficult to find qualified candidates. As you can see, for business here, so 58% agree. It's here important to highlight something. We are in the situation of the pandemic. Maybe a message for employers: be careful if you think that the easy solution for you to lay off people. Actually, laying off workers during economic downturn intensifying the perceived skill gap when the recovery begins. And employers are finding that hiring the right talent is more difficult than developing it within their own organization. So this is important to highlight. Okay, now we try to fill this gap. How is the response by employers to fill the gap? They have different strategies to fill the gap. Basically, there are three strategies: working directly with educational institutions and compete other employers for limited talents. These two strategies to achieve this, either by raising wages or by improving the recruiting workflow. The third here, work with other intermediaries. Okay, so as you can see here, and they focus mainly on recruiting workflow. So employers here, we can say that this is the priority. The priority for them, this is highlighted in blue, improving the recruiting workflow. In the recruiting workflow, as you see in these diagrams, there are different steps. So defining needs, hiring, and training. They actually, even by choosing this option, they are mainly focusing on hiring. And they are willing to invest in this process by screening. So they do screening versus internal training. So the emphasis on screening, okay, and on optimizing the current recruiting workflow, which demonstrates that employees believe it's uneconomical. They think that obviously if they work on the other strategies, it's uneconomical for them. They want to work on this directly and leave other educational parties, intermediaries, to deal directly with the gap. Okay. It's also important here to highlight employers have an important leadership role to play in providing viable pathway into the workforce, particularly amid uncertainty about exactly what the future of work will look like. So the leadership can take many different forms here. Partnering with local high schools to creating internal skills development program to identifying the skills that they need and communicated these skills to local education and community partners. Okay, now for educators, how is the response by the educators? Educational institutions, here I'm not talking about the traditional, the educational institutions who can contribute in filling the gap. They need to be agile. I think you heard this word maybe in all the presentation. So they need to develop agile educational programs that ensure adaptability, flexibility, and alignment with other stakeholders' needs, including employers and job seekers. They need to address as the highest priority for them, for their role, is to provide knowledge and training to the working world, which should be at the top of their role. Unfortunately, research showed that this actually only 30% of educational institutions see this as their key role. So this needs to change. Also, proactive collaboration with employers and crafting programs to target needs of businesses. This obviously we see good practices in this, and I would highlight that our university, Heriot University, use this proactive approach for collaboration, and our event today is one of the evidence for that. We work closely with industry. We have always activities and events, joint events, and also new initiatives to link or create communication and connection channels between our students and industry. Also, we have another party, which is part of the educational institution, but intermediary educational providers. And all of us know about this, these online resources that's free and you can learn and you can develop your skills. That's really important. And employers rely on this in filling the mainly technical gaps, technical skills. Focus mainly on current technical skills needed by employers with hands-on approach, which is important. They use the up-to-date technical skills, which is important, but be careful. As I said, talent should focus on the 3 types of skills, okay? They only develop technical skills, but for job-specific and soft skills, this non-traditional educational rule hasn't had as much success. So you still really need educational institutions. Okay, for job seekers, they are really in a risky position if we don't think about this disconnection. What they need to have? They need to have agile mentality as well, to swiftly adapt to the changing needs of employers through reskilling and upskilling. Also, job seekers, as if we link that employers focus mainly on screening, they also need to work on how to demonstrate their skills. So job seekers are looking for short-term solutions that will help better communication, their skills, so as to get onto the radar screens of employers. as a result, an increase in the popularity of tools. So maybe you are aware already of these tools that directly help job seekers get jobs. This is an example of these tools. Here's Skillful is a company. They describe themselves as GPS for a job seeker, seekers a career, aims to forge connection between employers, educators, and job seekers. Okay, they aim to provide job seekers with tools to identify the industries that are hiring, the skills they will need to get hired, and the list of places where they can get trained in these skills. Okay, so the last slide for me is about the collaborative response. What actually we need? We need a collaborative response from all the stakeholders. So to solve the talent gap. The current skill gap is concentrated in the new knowledge economy with digital economy, where the required skills, whether here I'm talking about technical or soft skills or job specific, depend heavily on the role. As a result, we can say that one size doesn't fit all, okay? So this can be applied for every role. The mechanism to close the gap should be through better communication channels and information flow among the key stakeholders. Employers are looking to improve how they confirm job candidates, how they confirm job candidates have the right skills. Educators are looking to improve what skills they teach, and job seekers are looking to improve how they showcase their skills. Such collaborative response is the key for the success in closing, with regard to closing the talent gap. Here I came to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your patience. We talked really more than expected. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shireen. Now, I don't think we have enough time for any questions and answer. We do have a quick survey. If you can scan the QR code and fill in this survey. One of the questions in the survey is if you would like to get a copy of all the questions, and we will respond to those questions. If you would like to have a copy of that, do put in your email address so we are able to share that with you. We'll also put the link for the survey if you're unable to use the QR code. Please do take time to fill this. This will help us gather some feedback on the survey, as well as it will help us in providing you with all the answers to the questions, which unfortunately due to the time we can't take. Dr. Shireen, there are some comments where people are asking for the slides. Would it be okay if we can share a copy of the slide with the participants?
Sorry, Vidya, is it for me or Dr. Karen? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, this is for you. So, some of the attendees are asking for a copy of the slides.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So now I would like to say thank you to Heriot University for such insightful presentations today. I would say a special thank you to CIPS MENA, the committee members and the speakers for volunteering their time and efforts to pull this event together. Please do remember to like us and follow us on hashtag CIPS Dubai branch. Thank you very much for your time. I will put the survey link here, and I will leave that on for 5 minutes. If anybody would like to fill the survey, please do feel free to fill it out.
So some, sorry, Vidya, some comments on that they can't access the QR code. Is there a link?
I'm just sharing the link. Just give me 1 second.
While we're waiting, can I just say a big thank you on behalf of Heriot University and the Business School, and a thank you to CIPS Dubai branch for organising this session, and to our three really interesting speakers tonight. There's some really good stuff there, so thank you very, very much.
So, Vidya, can you share our email address in the maybe chat box or with the audience if they have any questions that they couldn't ask during this webinar?
Yes, definitely. The survey link is there in the chat. If anybody would like to please fill this in, and please leave us your email address so we can share the answer to these questions in the presentation slides with you. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good night, and we should see you again soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.